Συνεχίζουμε με την επόμενη ενότητα, Renewables in the CROSSROADS.
Συνεχίζουμε λοιπόν με την επόμενη ενότητα. Ο τίτλος είναι ΑΠΕ στο δίκτυο στο δίκτυο. We continue with the next session, Renewables in the Crossroads Grid and Energy Storage Challenges. Participants, Mr. George Laloumis, Mrs. Bayrami, Mr. Behlivanoglu. Please come forward and take your seats, as well as Mr. Alexandros Yannis. The moderator is Mr. Spiros Papaefthimiou.
Ευχαριστώ. Αρχίζουμε γιατί έχουμε και λίγο χρόνο, καθότι το φαγητό και οι περισσότεροι βιάζονται. Renewables in the Crossroads, Grids and Energy Storage Challenges.
So, the question again in this panel is whether the chicken laid the egg or the egg was first before the chicken. So which are the factors that are being affected or will determine whether RES will become a primary part of our energy mix? So, since the clock is ticking, let me start with a question to Mr. Laloumis. The development of RES is the critical crossroads in Greece. The grid, the production of energy are restricting factors, or they can be seen as factors that can accelerate the integration of RES. Which are the main challenges of the Greek energy system nowadays and of the wider region, in your opinion, both with regard to infrastructure and also in relation to regulatory frameworks and choices? Well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for the invitation to participate in the 9th Forum and this very important panel. I shall be brief in what I say. A lot has been mentioned already, after all. Right now, we are at a point in time where the network in many cases is congested, and as a result, it is hard or impossible to add additional RES to the HEDNO or IPTO network. Connections, mainly with neighboring countries in Southeast Europe, require further strengthening in order to increase the power produced by RES and for enhanced stability of the system. Another very vital issue with regard to this issue that has already been mentioned and is also in the title of this panel has to do with the development of additional energy storage systems. Right now, there are very few such systems in operation, no major battery projects that have been connected. Nevertheless, the development of network projects and storage projects come up against a great wall with regard to licensing processes and for amendments to licensing, modifications, which take a very long time and cause great delays with regards to the integration of additional grid and storage projects that could help greatly in the further integration of RES projects to the Greek system. So, a major challenge for the transport network has to do with the integration and investment in smart grid systems that could optimize the transportation and distribution of the production and consumption of energy. And another 2 points that I think we should never forget are the following. One is the fact that there needs to be a certain transparency. In the process of sharing of curtailments, there needs to be a normalization. There will be curtailments, that is for sure. And this is one of the most important problems affecting projects in RES right now. However, this burden needs to be distributed proportionately to all projects in operation. And the last thing mentioned by Mr. Molanas at the beginning, which we often tend to forget, is that the incentives need to be given with regard to an increase in the demand for electricity. Whatever else we construct, if the demand for electricity does not increase, or if we don't find ways to address the peak in production, then we will always tend to deal with the same problems. Yes, electrification is very important, of course, and the curtailments are two issues which are vital. In the previous panel, Mr. Elfariadis mentioned that companies are starting to change the way in which they work, as well as consumers, by shifting their demand, which is very important indeed and absolutely essential. That is a change in mentality overall. Mr. Bearamis, this summer we saw many cases of overcongestion in the Greek electricity system because of the lack of electricity storage units and hyperproduction due to the RES. Given the delays in the development of this infrastructure, how can hydrogen and natural gas, since that's what your company specializes in, operate with regard to energy storage units? Thank you very much for the invitation and congratulations to the organizers. What we have heard today, and is well known to all, is that there is an absorption issue. In the last 8 months of 2025, about 1,600 gigawatts per hour were not absorbed by the system. And that in itself shows that there is a direct need not only to construct the RES projects, but also to have investments in networks, interconnections, and to also focus on green energy storage. We mainly work with biogas or biomethane, as it is known in recent years, and the recent bill of law was enacted in the summer. I think we're talking about the most flexible and easy form of storage with regard to green gases, since we use the largest battery in place, which is the natural gas pipeline. There's flexibility, 24-hour production. Green gases are always there when there is a need in the network, in the grid, when the wind turbine or PV is not producing energy, and it is a flexible form of energy that can also produce other fuel and also for mobility purposes. So we need to remember at this point what is probably already being implemented in Europe. We have some potential for batteries in Greece, and we're talking about green gases in this case that we need to keep in mind. So giving energy a color, or talking about green color and green energy may be something excessive, but that's the way it's described recently. So what changes do we need to see in the market, Mr. Perhiflanoglu, in order to see changes with regard to batteries and BES, as is known in English, in a country such as Greece, where RES is dominant? Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me to participate in this wonderful event once more. For us, this is déjà vu, because in 2020, once again, we were discussing and presenting energy and storage projects. Let me remind you that sometimes we also feel like we're the old man in storage, because the Rod Stilum has been working in a day-ahead market status since 1987, and it has produced excellent results with regard to how we can integrate these technologies in an actual system. Delos is a wonderful laboratory in this way. What we have always said and continue to support, and we see happening in countries taking rapid steps on slow steps, is the fact that when the consumption changes so dramatically, when the way in which you use energy changes, and any person is characterized by the energy he/she consumes, because whether we are talking about TN or air conditioning or electric cars, we are all characterized by the type of energy we consume. And that means that the whole system, fueling energy, must change. In the technical part, obviously, we cannot depend on old-fashioned techniques, for example, investing in more grid, more copper, more transformers. That's good, but not enough. What is definitely needed is a way of smartly managing storage and RES systems. And this today, there's also the issue of cybersecurity, which is not discussed broadly enough today. If we look at the international data, however, we see that there is a energy cyber war taking place right now. So it's not enough to make a smart grid, but also a safe grid. In the regulatory part also, what we used to say and is still valid is the fact that markets need to change on all scales or open up for all scales. The so-called virtual power plants in many countries have been installed and created, so we can't keep the door closed to small-scale producers, dispersed batteries, etc. The concept of net consumer, producer-consumer network is here. That's what we support in the house, the hotel, the industry, the storage unit. Everyone should be able to participate in cyber secure management and purchase and sale of energy sector. And this can provide stability to the system when the economic terms are mature enough. Otherwise, any other solution we cannot pay for, basically. It's too costly. There's also the issue of the behavior change of consumers that we see is gaining importance, and the issue of cybersecurity. I think potentially there should be a separate conference on this topic, which is indeed very significant, and will be discussed in the last panel, if I'm not mistaken, in relation to TN. Mr. Yannis, representing a company with many years of experience in RES, which do you believe are the greatest challenges in the sustainability and further development of the sector, and how can they be addressed? First of all, thank you very much to the organizers for giving us the floor and for our presence on the panel. I would like to focus, since we are a company that comprises field engineers mostly and daily issues, which seem not to have changed since 2006 when the company was established. Of course, the market has become much, much larger, but the daily challenges we face are similar to what we had to deal with in 2006 when the company began. So the permanent issue with regard to the environment is what I would like to focus on, and that is that there is a clear legislative problem affecting the speed and synchronization of our sector with those of other countries. A great abundance and complexity of laws and many gaps as well. And also another deja vu, as the previous speaker mentioned, that we are constantly asking legislators to talk to us. This promise is given regularly, but is not put into practice. And that's why we need to underline the fact that legislators need to speak to representatives of the sector in order to co-create the necessary conditions and a very clear legislative framework And this affects both the PV market with issues of self-consumption, for example, which are timely. We are expecting a number of circulars with net building, which cannot operate as it should, although it's been in place for a long time. Also problems in storage. We are on a grid forming, operating on a grid forming level. We have created the first grid forming project. We have 550 now megawatt per hour, which are awaiting use, and many other projects to be put in place. In Greece, overall, there are many issues that have to do with an acceleration and increase of storage units, larger scale projects, how they will operate with regard to on-consumption. There need to be connections with third countries. Also, Egypt was mentioned before, but we also need to go to the north. For us as a producer country, that is key. And there are also issues that have to do with an increase in the consumption of electricity, which has been repeatedly mentioned as well.
Let me come back to Mr. Aloumi. Mr. Aloumi, we have a term which combines metal and energy, which is an extraordinary combination, but let's not focus on critical minerals, which is another chapter. But you talked about a very ambitious plan for the projects on RES and strengthening of the storage capacity. What are the basic tools and strategies that you can use in order to have investments that will be viable and beneficial and contribute to the energy capacity of a country, whether we're talking about Greece or other countries where you're active? I will talk about things that we do in Greece, and there are similar projects in other countries with small changes, and vice versa. We get know-how from the UK and Chile, and we transfer it here. Metland has a holistic approach to its projects and its growth plan for RES and grids, and it implements an integrated system which includes various technologies for production, power production, like PVCs, wind, energy, support of grids, etc. And it also invests on a diversified portfolio using different production technologies. It activates the entire energy chain from production to storage to consumption, and it also covers the own consumption. We are on one of the highest consumers and retail from Protergia. It protects the sustainability of its investments. So this diversification of its portfolio, the holistic approach, and the verticalization of it in its structure safeguards in the best possible way the sustainability of all our investments. On the other hand, we have constantly followed and we have participated in public consultation for the regulatory framework, and we try to share our strategy if we need to change something. And we have developed structures and ways of monitoring our investment and the management of our work and our projects so that we ensure the sustainability of our projects, and in case this is necessary, intervene with necessary changes. And we have also intervened with specific changes in our maturity plans, in the way we have communicated our experience and our knowledge. We have cooperated with companies abroad for specific projects. So we have also invested on the development of know-how for our personnel, and also the development of the know-how for the management of these projects for our personnel again. And we also invest and develop digital systems aiming at a digital transformation. And I'm talking about systems that will allow us to maximize the deliverables of our projects and the output of our projects. And of course, ensure, as I've said, the sustainability of our investment. These are more or less the methods that we follow as a company. And we also transfer some of this knowledge and experience abroad. I focus on digital transformation and the upskilling of your staff through projects that are undertaken not just in Greece but in other countries, which is an advantage of your group. Ms. Bayrami, we had legislative initiatives for hydrogen, green gases. How can Greece focus on the penetration of green gases that we have in other countries of Central Europe, Germany, Austria? In the summer, I think both legislations passed in July, and we have the necessary legislative framework in order to have similar investment. So we're not just moving in dark waters, but we have specific framework for new investment in methane and other green gases. Of course, we have a long way to go until we reach the average, the European average. Biomethane and hydrogen have come here. They are much more sustainable compared to other battery systems. They are part of the circular economy, and for this reason, we have to include them in the RES mixture. Circular economy is very important because you can include many primary sources like the agricultural sector, which is very significant for Greece, and it can give many outlets for producers and farmers, even in remote areas where we don't have a natural gas grid. Mr. Pechlivanoglu, large-scale storage systems. We have a huge project in Ptolemaida near Thessaloniki. This large-scale storage facilities, how can they shape the stability of the network and the overall plan for energy in Greece? Today, we have a huge opportunity through storage systems change the entire energy system. Unfortunately, in the systems that are moving to a licensing process, we have quite a few challenges. today storage systems can support the whole network, but we need a grid forming technology that was mentioned earlier. This was our major objective when in 2020 we submitted the first application for a permit. Unfortunately, the majority of the projects that will be included in the grid, in a case of blackout, they cannot contribute to restoring the operation of the grid. So that's not helpful. So the objective of creating such an emblematic project, the largest in Greece and one of the largest in Europe, is to be able to offer both the ability to manage system, absorb any shocks, which will allow us to absorb overproduction of RES, and at the same time it will be able to create a grid forming properties, black start, etc., so that we give resilience, true resilience to the grid. This was acknowledged in the last time during the last visit of the Prime Minister in the region, and it will also allow us to develop such projects which will not have a very narrow arbitrage. They will be able to offer black start services to a grid which will not be in operation. So we have to bear in mind the business as usual of a network that never had a blackout will not be a reality in the future. So we have to plan all our systems and all our investments with resilience capabilities that are not very clear in our minds. You have the role of you making the last Mr. Yannis, the last comment. Some business models that you believe are more beneficial and profitable for Greece, for the management of the grids and storage. First of all, let me say that there have been very exceptional comments, and I'm very pleased that we had these comments. As far as the tools are concerned, of course, they are related to the type of project, the investor. It's different if we have a private equity from Europe and an industry. So I'm going to focus on something that is related to a very large breadth of applications, financial tools for own consumption, either a side project or a virtual project. So we are focusing on that. We believe that this is a necessary pillar for the stability of the grid, both in terms of resilience and other issues. So we are creating funding tools that will allow us to support projects at the virtual net billing. And we started in net metering. We had many such applications for institutions and businesses, and they enable the implementation of RES projects in cooperation with other projects related to storage and batteries, and they can be used by high energy consumption businesses. That's what I would like to focus on. Of course, there are many other tools that we could use. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much for your comments, for your contributions, which were all in time. Thank you.